7:45 this morning. Great to be with you. And next on the show, we're going to be talking about sugar addictions. And yes, I understand that sugar addictions are as serious as street drug or sex or gambling or any other addictions that people actually suffer from. So to join us today is the lovely Zaheera that was on the show last week as well. Zaheera Singh, who is a candidate psychologist and counselling director at ToughLove South Africa. And also Mayuri Ramkolowan. She's a certified integrative nutritional health coach. Let's unpack sugar addictions and how we can deal with it. And I have no doubt in my mind that both these ladies are going to tell us that 90% or more of the population all around the world are sugar addicts. And then the question to ask as well is, how serious is sugar addiction? Is it truly as bad as an outright drug addict or any other addiction? We are joined by the two lovely ladies. Assalamu alaikum, Zaheera, and good morning to you, Mayuri. Welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum salam.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Great to have both of you on the show. And hey, Zaheera, you're becoming a regular on my show. Thank you indeed.
Seems like it.
Lovely to have you here. Mayuri, let's start with you. I see you are a certified integrative nutritional health coach. Were you at any point in your life a sugar addict?
Yes, I think just like many of the people around me, and you, I'm sure I was. I didn't want to admit it, but I was using sugar to get me through the day, using sugary drinks, using sugary foods, chocolates, things like that, to just give me that boost of energy. I wasn't very good with my sleep patterns. I would work till the early hours of the morning, and just to manage my anxiety, to manage my stress, I used sugar to maintain the life that I had, to maintain the energy that I wanted. And that's a lot of what brought me down this path.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the damage that sugar does to your mind, your body, your soul, your spirit. But is that the reason why you then went down the path of integrative nutritional healing? Is that
yes,
what spurred you on?
It is more for the damage that it does to your mind and to your nervous system. My dad actually was the catalyst for it all. I guess he was diagnosed with dementia about 7 years ago, and then he suffered a stroke. He was an extremely healthy human being. He practiced a very good diet. He ran a lot. He was in the gym all the time, but he lived a very stressful life and sometimes would rely on he was diabetic as well. So he would rely on things like Tab, your Diet Cokes, things like that, a packet of chips, and your sugar-free chocolates or your Canderel chocolates, which are filled with so much of damaging ingredients. And that plus with my sugar addiction and realizing that I was using it to cope with life, I then went down the path. I found myself just Googling, and Dr. Googling is what we call it, and I found myself spending all my time doing my research instead of my work. And so I decided that maybe this is the path for me. And about 4 years ago, I decided to study integrative nutrition.
Okay. Whilst you were speaking, a word jumped out at me, and that is dementia. I've been asking a lot of healthcare professionals recently, why is it that we're seeing so much of dementia? And maybe, I'm not a healthcare professional, but just maybe the culprit could be sugar, overuse of sugar, and the sugar addicts walking amongst us. I raise my hand, I'm one of those. But let's go to Zaheera first, and then we'll continue talking with you. Zaheera, assalamu alaikum, welcome. Great to have you on the show again.
It's great to be back.
Okay, now I see that you are the candidate psychologist and counselling director at ToughLove South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big role, is it not? I mean, ToughLove South Africa plays a huge role in our country as far as broken families and addictions. When there are addictions, we know that means broken families, obviously.
Absolutely.
Broken homes, broken lives, broken hopes, and broken everything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it not only deals, we've now gone, well, firstly, I'm very proud to say that we've gone national, which I'm very grateful for. The other thing is that, what we do look at is we've also started looking at abused homes. You know, we found that there's a lot of abuse now with, especially post COVID. Even during the time of COVID, we found that there's been a lot of, that there's been an increase in gender-based violence. And together
Mhm.
with that, we found a lot of people suffering and battling in marriages gone sour and gone south. And that's what we've been aiding in as well. A lot of
How did you
marital
get
conflict.
how did you get involved with ToughLove South Africa?
So initially, it started off as me just uh, giving in my hours and getting my hours done and volunteering. But it very quickly became a part of me in that I took to its creed and I took to its motto simply because it works. I've seen it. I've seen people come in and out of those doors. They stay for the 6 week program and they start changing their lives. And initially, they would come for one specific, particular problem. And once they're there, you add on because it's a constant empowerment program that just helps you to live your life better.
Let's understand what exactly is that Tough Love does. You spoke about a 6-week program. Are we
Mhm.
talking about the addict or the patient? Are we talking about the support group? Are we
So
talking about people, family members that come in for
that's
support?
it. We talk about the family members. So when it comes to substance abuse, the abuser per se, the substance abuser would then go into a rehab. But there were steps that led up to that. In that, firstly, I mean, if you have a loved one on substances, you start showing signs of anxiety, frustration, annoyance, and with all of those signs, you start venting out, you start getting frustrated, and that's where the conflict comes about. So, Tough Love is there to empower you and to train you and to teach you that it's all about you, and that's where we help you, and that's where we guide you, and that's where we give you little goals and long term stands so that you are able to achieve them and you're able to become this incredible person without, invading on the space of the person that's in rehab.
What about, it sounds like an amazing program because basically what you're saying, as I understand you, is that you are helping the family, you're giving the family skills on how to cope with their loved one who is an addict or is in rehab. But that doesn't say, or that doesn't mean that the addict is going to be cured. It's just really strengthening the support structure around the addict. That still doesn't solve the problem with the addict. So let's just understand why people should then come to Tough Love. Because really, the basic,
Because
people say, I want my loved one to be healed. I'm not the problem. She's the problem or he's the problem.
exactly, that's what you think. That's what you think. So, for example, if you're in a relationship and if your loved one is abusing substances, um, so they would hit a rock bottom, and I'm sure, as Nadeem said in one of our other shows, he said, they would hit rock bottom, and once they reach rock bottom, they want to go out and seek help. And when they do end up going to the rehab, what do you do? Firstly, your life's been filled with the drama of where to find them, where to look for them, how to enable them, how to rescue them, how to fix, how to insist on them going to a rehab. And suddenly your life is empty because your loved one is now in rehab. So now what do you do with yourself? And that's where we help you. Yes, your loved one may be the problem, and yes, your loved one may have problems, and that's why they ended up in rehab. However, we are not infallible. We always have ways to improve. And that's where we help you. We help you firstly not live around the drama, not be embalmed by everything that's been happening. We teach you how to be you again without the anxiety, the frustration, the annoyance of having had your loved one on substances.
What about someone who might say, I've attended X amount of tough love sessions, I'm almost a lifelong member there, but my loved one who is an addict still manages to scheme and manipulate around us? That's question number one. Question number two is, I often hear people talk about rock bottom. There are many families who are waiting for their loved one to reach rock bottom. What is this rock bottom? What is it? What does it look like? What do they do when their loved one reaches rock bottom? But you mull on those questions, Zaheera. I'm going to come back to you in a minute or two. We'll have to go for an ad break at exactly 12 o'clock, but let me go back to you, Mayuri. Did you have a rock bottom, and what did it look like?
I'm not quite sure I had a rock bottom per se, but I did have a turning point, I think we'll call it that. And that was when my dad had his stroke. You know, for me to see somebody who was so fit and so healthy and so intellectual to lose his life in a sense like that was very shocking to me. And that was my way to start thinking, I need to change my behavior so that that's not my future and not my partner's future and not my siblings' future. Because, you know, these things are seen to be hereditary, and, you know, there's a gene that is passed down that can set you up for dementia. And we need to be doing everything to prevent that. So I guess you can call that my turning point or rock bottom. And yeah, I guess that was just when I decided to focus inward and find that growth and change my diet and deal with my anxiety, you know, find the core of my anxiety and not just find coping mechanisms.
When and how did you realize that you were a sugar addict?
I guess it was probably around 2014. I was, like I said, using caffeine and chocolates and a lot of the sort of processed foods, your pizzas, your sandwiches, those ready-made foods to just keep me going. If I was sad, I was turning to sugar. If I was excited, I was turning to sugar. If I needed energy, I was turning to sugar. If I was, you know, just pumped for the day, I turned to sugar because I thought I deserved it. I worked hard and I was getting good results, so I deserved to have some sugar. And I would do these 90-day challenges. And I think it was, I don't know if you know who Robin Sharma is, but
Yes.
I followed him, and, you know, he says between 60 to 90 days is what is required to change a habit. So I tried to put myself on these sugar-free, caffeine-free, gluten-free, dairy-free challenges, and I would last 30 or 40 days, you know, and after those 30 or 40 days, I was like, I can't do this. And I would binge for 2 weeks solid. I would have the breads, the pastas, the sugars, the your chocolates, your cakes, your ice cream. I have a weakness for ice cream, and I would just binge to the point where I would feel sick. I would gain like 3 kgs in 2 weeks, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I would feel physically nauseous and just drained from all of that poison that I was putting in my body. It took me 3 years of doing these 90-day challenges to realize that it was not working for me and that I was actually just addicted. And almost like when you put yourself in rehab, you know, a cocaine addict, put them in rehab, they need the support to get through those 90 days. You can't do it on your own. I was trying to do it on my own, with my own prescription, with my own sort of made up challenge. And I think it was probably then 2016 where I realized that actually I was addicted to the sugar and I needed to do something real. I put myself in therapy. I got the guidance and the help and the support from my family members to push me through being healthier. And I think the studying, going to school for integrative nutrition was a big help in that.
When we talk about addicts, did you realize, you know, when you realized that you were addicted to sugar, did you feel that you were as bad as a drug addict? Or do you think that sugar addicts and other addicts, gambling addicts or whatever else other addictions are out there, are not as bad as drug addicts?
I don't like to classify as one being worse than the other. When I was particularly in that stage, and I think a lot of my clients who are in that food addiction or sugar addiction, we are made to believe that it's very different. Food is the thing we eat. It keeps us alive. Being addicted to food is okay. That's the opinion out there. And I think I told myself that a lot, that it was normal. This is the food that's on the shelves in the store. This is the food that's being served to us. It's okay to be addicted to it. And I hear it in conversation a lot with friends that, food's addictive, but I love it. And we keep going. So I think if I understood your question correctly, when we think about food in comparison to something like gambling or alcohol or cocaine, it's not the same thing in our minds. But I don't like to say that one is worse than the other, because at the end of the day, it's an addiction. It's we're relying on it to get through our days. We're relying on it to be productive in our day.
All right. I want to talk to you about your withdrawal symptoms after the ad break. Please don't go away. Let's pay the rent first.
Shop at participating butcheries and pay using your Albaraka debit card and earn loyalty rewards. Visit albaraka.co.za/loyalty for terms and conditions.
You're listening to Mid-Morning Talk with Julie Alli.
Welcome back. We've just had one ad there and we're done with it. We're talking to Mayuri and Zaheera about addictions, particularly sugar addictions. And I guess the majority of us are food or sugar addicts. But if someone should point out to me that I'm a sugar addict, I wouldn't feel as bad as when someone said to me that I'm a drug addict, because drug addiction is deemed as truly serious. It's really looked upon as people who can't hold it together, people who are losers in society. They'll amount to nothing. They're not living up to their full potential, and you write them off. Would I be correct, Zaheera?
So yes, very much so. Simply because of the stigmatism that lies within our societies, in that, if you have a loved one that's addicted to substance or alcohol, they're shunned upon, and they're forced not to be associated with, and so on and so forth. And that is a huge problem. I think I did mention it before. Stigmatism and the stigma associated with any kind of addiction in many societies, in many cultures, is really, really deep, and it really needs to be addressed.
Mayuri spoke about support from the family. She was able to get her act together with support from her family. What does the support look like? I was chatting to someone over the weekend, someone who didn't want to have anything to do with a family member of his who is abusing substances. And because of the substance abuse, his behavior is very bad. So the brother ignores him completely. My question to him was, don't you think that if you showed him love and respect and kindness, you'd probably be able to win him over? But with you ignoring him and making him feel even more worthless than he's feeling about himself right now, is going to push him deeper into the crevice. Your thoughts?
No, based on the Tough Love program, I firmly believe that what the brother is doing is 100% correct, simply because, remember, with the Tough Love program, we highly emphasize us not, when I say us, I mean the family, not enabling, not rescuing the addict, because once we do that, we are basically we're giving them the money, we're giving them the tools to say, here, go, go do whatever you like, and, buy as much drugs as you want. You're basically digging the grave for them, which is not what you want to do. And that's why the Tough Love program is, and we would encourage the brother to actually come to Tough Love so that we can help him and we can empower him even further than where he is, simply because where will his brother go? Where will his loved one go to? Eventually, family is going to find out. They're going to know he's on substance abuse. People are not going to want to tolerate that for long periods of time. And eventually, he's gonna either be living on the street, or he's going to be, be hitting his rock bottom. He's going to be hitting the fact that he's now broke. He's broke. He doesn't have any money. He doesn't have anything to steal in order to make more money, because his family doesn't want to invite him in. He's constantly high. Eventually, there's no feed to the addiction, and that's his rock bottom. And then what does he do? He's then going to turn to his brother and say, I don't know what to do. And his brother gives him an ultimatum and says, well, you can either go to the rehab or you can go back to the street. And what do you think he's going to choose?
That's the type of support you talk about.
Yes.
You give them ultimatums, but obviously when they're not ready, it's not going to work.
For sure, 100%.
All right. So you mean that the ignoring them, marginalizing them is part of the modus operandi for them to come to the realization that they are not pleasant to be around, that they are disrupting this entire family and possibly the support system around this family. Is that really the route to go?
Well, that's the Tough Love route to go. And we've found with, like I said, hundreds of families that it's worked. Simply because when you force somebody to go to a rehabilitation center, they're not ready. It's like the same old saying, you can take a horse to the water, but you cannot make it drink. So when you force them into a rehab, they're going to go there to please you, to appease your request. And that's kind of about it. But their heart and soul is not going to be in the program. They're not going to follow it. They're not going to implement it once they come out. And that's a problem, because all that's going to happen is it makes relapse just that much easier. So when the addict themselves opts to go to a rehab and they opt to detox on their own by themselves because they know what they've lost, it's easier then to say, okay, fine, welcome back. These are the rules. These are my boundaries. This is how we are going to take life forward.
So it's tough conditions. You withhold love from them.
It's not withholding love. Sorry to interrupt, Julie. It's not withholding love. It's simply withholding support. It's not enabling. It's not rescuing. It's not feeding the habit for them. That's what it is.
So it's really about, I cut you off. I refuse to have anything to do with you till you get your act together. If you don't, I'm not going to interact with you when you are constantly on a high and when you're constantly abusive and rude and totally unsociable. So that's the route you go. Someone's asking a question, what is it that makes addicts, does it depend on the type of drugs they're using, but what is it that makes addicts so irritable all the time, so abusive and so short-tempered? Mayuri, perhaps you want to talk to us about maybe withdrawal symptoms. Did you have any of those symptoms? And then Zaheera, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to the very same question. Let's go to you, Mayuri.
So what I see with my clients is that the sugar addiction, what makes them irritable is you're waiting for your next fix. And I'm quite sure Zaheera will agree with me that it's the same with, alcoholics and other drug abusers, is you're irritable because what you've had has just started to wear off, or it's starting to wear off, and you're like, okay, how and when and where is my next fix going to come from? And the irritability rises, and that comes from a lot of physiological effects as well. Our liver is where a lot of, and this might sound a little bit far-fetched, but our irritability comes from the lack of health in our liver. And when we are drug abusers, sugar abusers, things like that, our liver is obviously strained. And when our liver is not functioning properly or is overloaded, that irritability rises.
Zaheera, back to you. And is that exactly the reason why the loved one, your addicted loved one, becomes irritable, abusive, violent, and downright a very, very ugly, unpleasant person?
I fully agree with Mayuri. It's a case of looking for the next fix. It's when they're coming down from the original state, and it's that frustration of not feeling that high as quickly as they want, and they tend to almost act hyperactively and feel anxious and irritated. And yes, those are ways to vent. So 100% spot on with what Mayuri said.
All right, someone else is asking, why does my loved one, I know that my loved one is an addict, why does he sleep a lot?
Well, that depends on the type of substance he's on, but a lot of substances have got many different side effects, and he could be taking sleeping pills, which is putting him to sleep. So that could be one of the things. It's difficult to answer that simply because I don't know what substance they're on.
Okay, Mayuri, earlier on you spoke about dementia. I asked the question, why is it we're seeing more and more dementias? Do you think that our addictions, our sugar addictions, possibly even substance abuse, hard street drugs, do you think these are possibly the causes of why we're seeing more dementias these days?
Definitely, I can't say it's 100% the cause why it's on the rise, but there is a lot of science out there, there's a lot of research out there that is showing that the processed foods that we're eating, the high sugar foods that we're eating is increasing our risk for things like dementia, heart disease, and so on. Hard street drugs, I don't think I am qualified enough to answer that question, but I'm sure that with the hard street drugs, the degeneration of our nervous system, of our brain health, that is definitely going to set us up for some kind of brain damage.
In terms of your diet, what does it look like today? Are you totally off all sugars, or are you using sugars in moderation?
I am, for the most part, off sugar. I love my natural sugars, so my fruits, my vegetables that have a lot of sugar in it. And, I have experimented a lot in the kitchen, and I have my desserts that are made simply from natural sugars. But for the most, I would say 95%, 90% stay away from processed sugars.
Do you ever have a craving after all of these years of your sugar addictions? And how do you deal with the cravings?
All the time. Stress is a funny thing. And it's kind of, I relate it to muscle memory. So if you used to ride a bike as a kid and say for 20 years you never rode a bike, and somebody put a bike in front of you and said, hey, you got to ride down the street, you'd be able to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So much like that, our cravings and our stress and our anxieties, there's muscle memory there. So if somebody that used to shout at you when you were 10 years old comes back into your life and shouts at you again, guaranteed that anxiety and stress is going to rise. And if I'm put in a situation like that, and mine used to be exams, I hated exams. I would get super stressed for exams, and I would study so hard or be really full understanding of it, but get into the exam room and put me in front of that table and I would go blank. So very similarly now, if I'm questioned or put in front of an exam paper, I get very stressed out, and I definitely want that chocolate ice cream. What I do now is, and I think it was one of the questions that you sent me as well, is water is an amazing thing. And if you can naturally flavor your water, so put some lemon, put some mint. I'm an essential oil fundi, so I would put my drops in my water, and that would just flavor it enough for me to not want to give 100% into the craving. I would drink that water finished, maybe have another one. And if I still wanted to give into that craving, I would allow it.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how where you're based and how you're helping people through the journey that you've been through, and how long do they have to stick with something like that with you?
Okay, sure. So it's hard for me to say how long you would have to stick with it because each person is different. Each person has their own emotional trauma that they've been through. Each person adapts differently at a different pace. But I am based in Centurion in Pretoria, but I mostly just work online. COVID has allowed us to, transform our businesses amazingly. I have a really fun Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group where I share free advice, free training on, how to move away from your sugar cravings, how to adapt, how to just think of your life differently, change your mindset. And I do recipes, things like that, using natural sugars, all in my Facebook group. I go as Holistic Maymay, and my group is Holistic Maymay's Sugar Freers. But yeah, my programs are between 6 weeks and 6 months, all depending on the client's specific needs.
Great stuff. Let's go to Zaheera to wrap up. Zaheera, in closing, what do you have to say to us about addictions, about rock bottom, about tough love support, and the type of support? You have clearly stated that you don't walk softly around your addicted loved one. You take a very hard stance. You can even ignore them, even if that breaks out into an altercation. So after being at Tough Love, we will then get the tools to be able to help our loved one. I'm just wondering if you're not pushing them away, with your very hard stance. Are you not pushing them away and pushing them deeper into addiction? They probably think, I'll show you a thing or two. How dare you, you ignore me? I'm going to show you. And then they go out and drug even more.
Okay, so I'll answer your questions in a twofold thing. Firstly, is that we take baby steps, okay, in that we don't shove you and say, okay, shun your loved one, say goodbye, and move on. No. We do it at your pace. We work at your pace because, like Mayuri said earlier on, everybody's different. Everybody has a different program, and we kind of adapt the program to suit you so that you are able to take baby steps in order to empower yourself. So it's not about we teach you more about you. We don't teach you about your loved one that requires rehab. And once you learn about you and you start focusing on you, it's a little easier because firstly, your addicted loved one then mimics or wants to know why the change of behavior. They almost, when they come out of rehab, it's so common for them to mimic your behavior because they learn how to feel empowered. They see your newfound confidence. That's firstly. Secondly is, yes, nothing prevents them from not going back to the street. So yes, they probably would go back to the street. But again, at what cost? Surely they need to buy the drug. Nobody's going to give it to them for free and say, here, have this. They need to buy it. They need money. Where are they going to get the money from if not from their loved ones?
Okay, unfortunately, that's where we have to leave it. I really have to have you back online just to close, to really, there's so many unanswered questions around this issue because there's one school of thought who believe that if I show my loved one lots of love and support, he'll see the error of his ways and he'll want to change. And there's the other group, which I think is the thinking that you at Tough Love follow, is give them ultimatums, put your foot down, cut them off all sources of money and everything else. And they would then probably hit rock bottom all the more sooner, which hopefully would then force them into rethink their situation and go into rehab. But all of that, hopefully, on another show. Thank you indeed for being with me, ladies. It was absolutely informative and lovely talking to you guys. Go well, and salam alaikum to you, Zaheera.
Welcome, Salam.
Thanks, Julie.
It's exactly 12:19. We're going for an ad break, and when we get back, we are going to be talking the spirit of Ramadan.